Hello and welcome back. This is week 5 of our KHS 390 Sport Management course. This week we are going to finish up the topics of functions within sport management. You've got some specific readings you will need to do that are available in your weekly folder. And then we've got some discussion boards. As we get started, just to review, we are talking about functions that occur for professionals working within sports. We talked about communication and we talked about marketing last week. And this week we will focus on finance and follow up with facility and event management, specifically starting this lecture with finance. So why do we talk about finance? What does this have to do with the function within sports? Well, first, let's just talk about this big picture. What is the economic size of the sport industry? Like, how much money are we talking about? What if we talked about just the sport industry economic size in Minnesota and then compared it to New York? Would our size in Minnesota be smaller? Or because we have so many professional teams, would it be a lot bigger than New York? What if we looked at a state like South Dakota, right? Would you think the economic size there would be much smaller? What if we said, let's look at the economic size of the sport industry in the US or expanded it to the North America or even globally? Well, I can tell you this topic is awesome. It's overwhelming because how in the heck do we determine the economic size of sport or sport and recreation or sport, recreation, health and wellness, right? It's just hard to determine that because our industry is so diverse and it includes professional, college, youth, community, fitness clubs, private sport clubs, camping retailers, golf courses, dance studios, and the list goes on and on. So let's talk about finance in general. It's really important for you to understand that when it comes to money for the business you work for, that your net income or your profit is the revenues or the money you bring in minus the expenses, and that's the money that you're spending. So just because you maybe bring in $10,000 on your youth program, that might sound really good, but when you look at how much you pay people, the amount of money it takes to manage the facilities you're using, the equipment, the uniforms, right? Your total revenue minus expenses may not turn a profit. So understanding that basic rule in finance is key to being successful as a sport manager. So what can we talk about? Revenues in sport. How do we make money in sport? Like I said, it could be membership fees or dues. It could be participants paying to participate. It could be people buying tickets. It could be the parking fees. Could be merchandise sales. Could be media, right? Depending on what level, what sporting you are, sport level or setting you are in, there are different and unique sources of revenue. Similar when you talk about expenses. We have to pay people, and paying people is a huge expense. Maybe you have volunteers coaching, but maybe you still have to put them through trainings. And those trainings cost money, right? Otherwise, it's paying people's salaries, their benefits, paying taxes on that, paying for your facilities, paying for the utilities to run your facilities, paying for the maintenance of your facilities, paying for marketing materials, paying for um, furniture, paying for equipment. There are so many different expenses that you potentially could have in your position. So you will notice one of your readings this week is Crompton from 2004, where he talks about these big professional teams coming into cities and saying, we want this city, these taxpayers or this state, and the taxpayers in this state to help subsidize, to help pay for our sports stadium. As you read through the article, see if you can identify an argument that fits within each of the justifications. And then see if you can see what justifications do you think were used by the Vikings when they built their stadium here in Minnesota? It might take a little bit of research for you to figure this out, but as you're looking at the different ways that these professional teams, these multi-million billionaires, justify taxing people to support their pro teams, you might think, I actually agree with some of these, or maybe you do not. So I was really lucky. I was able to work with the Vikings, the professional NFL team here in the state of Minnesota, on this research project. And we looked back at the press releases and the 4 justifications from the Crompton article. And for the 3 years where they were sending out multiple press releases, I was able to categorize those into categories based on the justifications. So one of the justifications was increased community visibility. The second one was enhanced community image. The third was the stimulation of other development. And the fourth was psychic income. So what kind of press releases did they push out? What kind of messages did they send to the taxpayers in the state of Minnesota to get us to support spending our hard-earned money on a private stadium for the Vikings? Well, you will see here that the most popular was enhanced community image. The city of Minneapolis, the state of Minnesota would be a better place to be, to live, if we had this pro stadium, right? So read into that, see what you think. They also talked 34 times about stimulating other development, bringing businesses to town, creating jobs in construction, creating a place for new restaurants and hotels to come and build up around the stadium and support this team. And then they talked 29 articles or press releases about psychic income and just how proud we're going to be as members of the state of Minnesota to have this super cool, awesome Viking stadium and team in town. So again, take some time to read through those because it is really interesting to see how finance played into the Vikings research project. Just a note that as we were analyzing the media or press releases put out during the Viking Stadium campaign, that we were able to categorize some of the messages from those into the 4 different justifications. So this is just an FYI type of slide. If you are interested, feel free to pause, zoom in, take a look, and yeah, it's super interesting, I think. So enjoy. And that takes us through finance, the function of finance within sport. So we've talked about communication, marketing, and finance, and now we're going to talk about facility and event management. Why do we talk about facilities and events together? Well, simply put, having a facility without events would be a loser business, right? Yay, we have this billion-dollar beautiful stadium, but we have nothing going on inside, right? That wouldn't help. That wouldn't enhance the community. That wouldn't bring in revenue. And vice versa. If I have an event, I'm going to need a facility to host it in. So we study these 2 topics together in the single function of facility and event management. When you look statistically at what's going on with sport and entertainment facilities in the US, there has been a lot of growth. I included a hyperlink in here if you want to click on that and dig a little deeper, but wow, it's growing at the pro level, it's growing at the college level. These sport and entertainment facilities are a trend that we've seen, and they're getting more and more high tech, more and more user friendly or engaging for fans. And so it's kind of fun to look at what's happening. So feel free to click on that. Otherwise, just know that with these economic challenges, right? We just talked about finance. Professional teams are challenged to secure facility and event revenue. If you like a fast-paced job, if you want to work in an area where you're in a facility and you're providing a wonderful opportunity for events to exist, you might want to go into operations. You might want to work behind the scenes in scheduling or with the finance. There's a lot of openings in video and technology and statistics within our sport events and facilities. There's also people doing maintenance, custodial, or building supervisor or coordinating. Of course, we've got marketing and promotions, we've got merchandising, we've got risk management or the legal side, and a lot of other opportunities to work within sport events and facilities. I think it's important for us to take a few minutes to talk about event management and how there are different viewpoints on how we focus on being an event manager. The first one is this narrow viewpoint that looks specifically at the event itself. This is where an event manager would say, we have an upcoming event, we need to schedule, negotiate, and coordinate it. The day of, we need to make sure that we have the staging set, figure out the seating, customer service, different policies around alcohol and crowd management. And then at the end of the event, just clean it up and evaluate it. What I challenge you to do is to think about this multi-phase experience. In this type of event management, we don't just look at the event phase, which on this list is number 3 at the bottom, but we're going to look at the multi-phases of an experience. First, we have the planning phase. This is where you and I say, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be fun to go to the home football game coming up next month? And we start talking about who's going to get the tickets and what do we want to do before the game, and should we have matching t-shirts, and should we go out to eat on the way, or what should we do, right? We start planning it. We get excited. We look online. We find out more information. The second part of the multi-phase experience is actually the travel to. This is you picking me up. Our ride in your car. A stop at the gas station. A stop at a restaurant. A stop to pick up another friend. It's the traffic as we get closer. That's bumper to bumper, and we sit for an extra half hour. It's driving around for extra 45 minutes to find a parking spot because everything's full. So the travel to is everything that gets us from point A to the actual event itself. And then we have the event. The event is the game, right? Very simple. The event is the game. Then the travel from. The game ends, and now we have to walk back to our cars. Let's say for this situation, we can't remember where we parked. We walk around for an extra 30 minutes. It's freezing cold. It's snowing. We finally find the car, and when we get there, we realize that someone has broken into the car and rummaged through it, and we have a broken window, right? That would unfortunately be part of our travel from. The person who set up and planned the event has nothing to do with our parking lot fiasco, but yet it is part of our multi-phase experience. So the travel from leaving the event, driving home, maybe we stop at a bar and have a cold drink on the way home. Maybe it gets so late that we end up crashing at a hotel, right? Things like that until we finally get home. And then that leads us into the final stage, which is reflection. It's where the next day when we're posting pictures on social media and you call me up and you burst out laughing because it's so funny how it all ended up. It is me wearing my shirt, the home team shirt to work the next day and talking about the event, talking about how much fun it was. It is all of those follow-up pieces that come through the reflection. And then what happens? Well, if the event management team did a good job, you and I, start talking about the next game. And we go right back to the top into the planning stage again. So as you heard, within the function of event and facility management, there are a lot of pieces. And that wraps up the management function second part lecture. For this week, make sure you read the finance readings and the multi-phase sport experience reading. That will help you kind of connect the dots on some of the things we talked about in this lecture. Also, make sure you tackle the 3 discussion boards this week. You'll see there are some short podcasts included. And then I wanted to look ahead because you have a couple of assignments coming up due in the last few weeks that are going to take a little extra time, so I want you to start thinking about them today. The ethics review assignment will be part of next week, week 6. And then the resume and the professional industry person interview is going to be due week 7. Please take time to look ahead at those and start working on those now. Thank you and have a fantastic week.